What's up guys, it is Chale Kate here with a new video. In my past videos, I have had quite a few people tell me that they are getting ready to start revature training or they're thinking about applying. So I thought I would give you all a video on how to be successful at revature. So stay tuned if you want to see my top 5 tips on how to be successful in revature training. Okay, so tip number 1 is to always follow along with your trainer during the demo. It's like learning to ride a bike with your parent or guardian or whoever's teaching you, like right next to you, and they're holding onto the bike and they're holding onto you and they're helping you keep your balance and making sure that you don't fall. It's like practically the same way. So during your demo, the trainer is basically guiding you through every single step you will need to implement a specific feature or whatever it is that you're working on at the time. And while you could just watch them because you don't actually have to build necessarily what they're demoing or the project that they're building during the demo, it's good practice to start seeing how things will work for yourself in your environment, what kind of errors may pop up for you, because sometimes you will get errors that your trainer didn't get, and so that's a great time to ask questions and find out how you can troubleshoot certain errors or different workarounds. Maybe you didn't download a package or you missed a step. So this is the perfect time to ask all of these questions instead of waiting until you're building something on your own after class or after work rather. And this brings me into my second tip. Tip number 2 is to rewatch the demos about 1 to 2 days after they have been taught. All the demos are recorded in Zoom and uploaded into the cloud on Revature's training website, so they're always available for you to rewatch, and you should rewatch them. This is really good for enforcing what you've learned. Even if you feel 100% about what you just learned, it's always good to go back and just get that reinforcement, because you should be practicing every day, practicing your coding or just going over the topics for QCs. It's also really good to go back and rewatch demos because you can catch things that you missed in real time. A lot of times when I would go back and rewatch the demos from the week prior or whatever, I would say, oh, I didn't even hear her say that. You tend to find things that you missed when you were learning in real time when you watch it a second or third time. And this is a bonus tip within the tip, to make good use of your time. So I don't know if every single trainer does it the same way that mine did, but we had a lot of extra time. Like most days we got done around 4 o'clock, but your work day is technically till 6. So we would have 2 free hours to do whatever. And then on top of that, you have the extra hour that you're paid for to use whenever you want to use it. So you could even use that time to rewatch demos, to practice building stuff, to get on HackerRank, but you definitely want to make good use of that time. Again, I don't know if everyone will have that time, but we had a lot of free time in my training group. Tip number 3 is to ask questions. Ask all the questions. Even if you don't have a question, ask a question. Like if you just need to reiterate. So the trainer went through something, you're pretty sure you understand it, ask the question like, hey, so what you said is this goes like this happens like this imports to here, and then they can confirm that you understood it correctly, or fix something that you misunderstood. But always ask questions. You will not know what you're missing if you don't ask. And you have your trainer to ask these questions to, but you also have your peers, because there are so many people around you. You are bound to find an answer somewhere. Of course you need to learn how to use Google, but definitely ask questions. And this brings me to tip number 4. Work with your peers. There are going to be people who come from a tech background, whether they have worked in other tech fields before and maybe didn't code. Some people have gone through boot camps and decided to sign up for Revature and work with them. And then there's going to be people that just learn faster than others. It's really easy for them to take in new things, whether that be logical or creative, and digest it in their brain however they need to, and they get it in just one try. So even if you're behind, there's always going to be people around you that you can reach out to for help. So you definitely need to work with your peers. Someone asked in my comments before if the people who had a zero tech background were struggling, and I didn't find that many of them were. There were like 1 or 2 But again, that's different for each person, because some of those people with zero background in tech were catching on really fast and were starting to help others. And then some people were just like kind of at the very bottom of the class in what they could do and how long it took them to catch on to things. But you want to get familiar with your peers, because if your trainer is not available, you will have other people that you can ask questions to. Not to mention that you all are working on the same project, so they may have run into errors or bugs that you're going to run into, and they figured out how to solve it, so you don't have to bump your head on a wall for 3 days, because somebody may have already gone through the same problem and figured it out. And also there is P3 that the whole cohort does together. You're gonna have to get to know everyone anyway by the end of training, because everyone works together on one big group project. And my tip number 5 is to start early. Start on your projects early, start studying early. Like whatever it is, start early. But most importantly, your projects. Start on them as early as you can. Like as soon as you have the specifications, I would start planning what you want to do for your projects, especially those solo projects, so that you can jump into actually building it. When it comes time to working, you will be tempted to watch the demos and tutorials online over and over and over again until you feel like you have a solid understanding of what was taught. But the understanding honestly comes in the doing. You have to just jump in, get your hands dirty, and start building and start breaking stuff, because that's how you learn what doesn't work and how to fix things that don't work. And I think that this honestly helps with information overload. I did receive a question about how do you handle information overload and not get burnt out. I think the key is to start using what you're learning, because that's where the clarity comes from. If you're just taking in all the information but you're not practicing, then it's just kind of like what I see in my head is that all this information is just sitting in your brain in a jumble. But once you start building stuff and practicing, then you can see how things work, and slowly that jumble starts to come undone and you can clearly see how things work, and it's not so foggy in your brain. So if you want to reduce that information overload, you need to start building stuff and start practicing what you're learning, because the clarity comes in the practicing. Another reason to start early is because you will underestimate how long it takes you to complete a task or implement a feature. For instance, in working in our P2 project, one of the group members was responsible for setting up the web API. And we had all had to do this for our P1s, so it's like, oh, we've done this already, I can do it, no problem. But whatever she was going through, I honestly can't remember. She was having trouble setting it up, was hitting some roadblocks, and it took like 2 or 3 days, with a weekend in between, of course, before she was finally like, okay, I'm going to set up a one-on-one with the trainer so she can kind of walk me through what's going wrong and I can fix this. So it's really easy to say, oh, I've done this before, this is how I do it, it'll work out, and you underestimate that you can get it done like this because you don't know what you're going to run into. So just start early, because honestly, even the best of the best are going to run into some errors. Everyone at some point booked a one-on-one debugging session with our trainer because all of us needed help, every single person. So don't be afraid of things going wrong, because it's going to happen, it's inevitable. Just jump in and start doing it. My last tip, which is honorable mention, is don't sweat the QC. I spoke with multiple trainers and they all said that they would rather you do mediocre on QCs than to cram all this information in your head to get like lime green or green and then just forget it after the QC has passed. Yellow, which is average, is good enough, and that just lets them know everything might not be clear, but you are understanding the big picture. Just like my tip within a tip before, all the trainers I spoke with really emphasized practicing. Any knowledge gaps that you have about QC topics are going to be made clear once you start practicing and using those concepts. Now, I will say everything we learned during training was not used on projects. Every single thing was not incorporated in a project at the time. but you needed to know the information for if you're asked in an interview. But that's why they say, have your projects done, because that's proof that you can do the work. That is it for my top 5 tips, plus an extra bonus honorable mention with a couple other bonuses through in there on how to be successful in revature training. But honestly, when you think about it, the majority of these tips can be applied to learning how to code in general. So whether you have been through revature, or you're planning to, or you're learning how to code on your own, or you went to a boot camp, or you have a CS degree, I would like to know, what are some of your tips for how to be successful when learning how to code? Drop them down in the comments below so we can help out our community and help each other all succeed in being wonderful software engineers. In the next video, I will be discussing weeks 5 through 8 or 5 through 9 of training to kind of wrap up my training experience with revature. So be on the lookout for that. And that's it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And until then, I will see you in the next video. Bye.